Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Marchuk. Welcome to the Transform Now podcast. In this episode, we'll be chatting with Mohammed Hafeez Baig, the author of AI-powered SAP Finance and the founder of Quantinex AI. With over a decade of experience as an SAP management consultant, he's made his mission to create the next generation of AI-ready SAP analysts and consultants. Welcome, Mohammed.
Thank you so much for having me, Michael.
I'm
Yes.
glad you're here. So, obviously, this little short bio doesn't give you enough background on you. So, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much again for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here on this podcast. So my journey actually started on the other side of the SAP system. I started off as an end user, uh, working inside the finance processes and understanding the day-to-day realities of how numbers flow within the system. I've seen and experienced those inefficiencies which hide inside the system, and I've seen how systems impact decisions. So that experience of working as a SAP end user or accounts receivable associate, that experience shaped everything that came after. Um, so when I eventually transitioned into the world of SAP consulting, which was about a decade ago, I carried that user's mindset with me. I carried the empathy for the person behind the screen, which is the end user, which I was once a part of. And then over the years, as I worked with large enterprises, I realized something which I feel was very powerful, is that while technology was evolving fast, people were not always evolving with it. And that's what led me to write my book, AI Powered SAP Finance. And later, I found a Quantinex.ai to help bridge that gap between how we use SAP and how we think with AI. And as you rightly mentioned in the introduction, today my mission is simple, but it's ambitious. It's to create a new generation of AI ready SAP consultants. Uh, what I envision is professionals who blend deep process understanding with intelligent innovation and who can deliver impact from day one. So
Yeah, that
yeah,
makes sense.
yeah. So
That
I'm
makes
really
sense.
looking forward to this conversation because I think we are living through a moment where finance, technology, and also human creativity are converging, and that's where the real transformation is happening right now.
No, I agree. I agree. So you've worked with, legacy SAP systems and some of these cutting edge AI tools. What's one thing that traditional finance systems still do better than AI? And how do we hold on to that strength while we're still modernizing and moving towards a more AI based platform?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. You know what? What I love about traditional finance systems is their discipline. Uh, uh, Legacy SAP systems were uh, built around a single principle that every transaction must have a logic, it must have a control and traceability, which was huge. Like back in like late 90s or early 2000s, that itself was a you know uh, great thing to achieve. And then uh, I think there's a beauty in that. Let's say a general ledger uh, does not improvise; it it obeys the rules of accounting, and that kind of reliability builds trust across decades. Whereas AI, on the other hand, it introduces adaptability. It learns patterns and predicts outcomes, but it doesn't inherently understand the why behind it. So that's why I often say that let's not let AI erase what finance perfected. Instead, let's make AI learn from it. So so we preserve that strength by embedding governance and explainability into every AI model. So what do I mean by that is when an algorithm predicts, we know why it predicted that. And traditional systems teach us accountability, and AI teaches acceleration. So the winning formula is when we get both working together, fast innovation built on foundation of integrity.
Well, that makes sense. So in your book, you talk about bridging the gap between ERP and AI. And obviously finance, as you mentioned, this is something that, well, has been around for thousands of years. People keep track of things, math doesn't change. So we start looking at these workflows that you mentioned that are well embedded, and honestly, you don't want them to change because of the transparency and the accountability that come in with it. What's the most overlooked opportunity that AI can bring to the table to enhance those workflows, but obviously not wreck them?
That's a great question again. Uh, so, so um, again, I'll give you a little bit of context in line with my book. So, so when I was writing AI powered SAP Finance, my book, I realized that most people look at AI as a tool to replace humans. Uh, but in reality, AI's biggest value lies in enhancing uh, what already exists. Uh, Let me think of an example. Like, let's say inside SAP, we have enormous data volume sitting in the universal journal line items that tells stories of cost, timing, performance, and exceptions, right? So I think AI can analyze those patterns. It can detect anomalies and even predict month-end risks before they happen. That's something ERP alone can do right now. So, and we also have untapped potential in areas like intelligent reconciliations, forecast simulations, or even AI assisted audit trails. So I think the real opportunity is contextual intelligence, teaching AI not just to process data, but to uh, understand the business meaning. So sorry, I'll make a quick one last point. So I think that AI is not here to take the controller's chair, and I think it's here to be the co-pilot, helping them make faster, smarter, and confident decisions.
That makes sense. I wanted to bring up, so you mentioned it's not there to replace people. Obviously, that it's not. The challenge you have though within finance, especially when you start looking at the broader perspective, is I've got this operational activity that I'm working on right now, and AI can bring so much more to the table. But how do we do that without impacting the day to day? Because all these controllers and the everyone working within finance, they, as you mentioned, these workflows have been around for quite a while, and they're tried and true and expected, right? How do you introduce something new that can provide these newer insights without upsetting the apple cart of the current workflows that all these people are doing right now?
Well, I think that today that many finance leaders or many people in general and many SAP consultants in general, people associate AI with chaos, especially in context to SAP, because we already have our status quos and we don't want to disrupt our systems uh, because it took us years to standardize and normalize operations. But um, again, as I said, we associate AI with chaos. We imagine disruption. We imagine job loss and the overall system overhaul. But I think the most successful transformation I've seen, uh, th- there people treat AI as evolution and not as a revolution. So you don't start by replacing what works. Um, you start by enhancing it. Like, uh, start with automating one process, like invoice matching or cash application, and let teams see how it helps them. And I think AI should quietly improve your processes without demanding new habits overnight. So I think if when I get a chance, I will tell CFOs that make AI invisible at first. And integrate it into the workflow that already exists inside SAP Fiori screens or approval steps or analytical dashboards. When finance teams experience the benefits without the fear of the unknown, I think adoption will become organic. And then,
So that
mhm,
that part about the
yeah,
adoption piece, that's the part because I keep thinking about this. Finance in my mind, you have these well-established workflows,
right.
and I'll try to say this nicely. It, it can seem a little bit rigid, right? So, finance, generally speaking, isn't one to jump on a new train and say, "Oh, we know, let's just change our processes now that we have a new tool evolved." So, how do you do that practically when you have an organization who may not necessarily be Silicon Valley, cutting edge, hey, let's break stuff and then we'll fix it later type of thing. Or maybe it's a bank or an insurance company. They've been around for 100 plus years, doing business. They have like I said, well established practice. How do you bring that in without, like I said, upsetting both the people, but also the processes that are in place? Because most of these finance organizations aren't very risk tolerant, if you will, in terms of getting their processes done.
Yeah. So for that, let me give you one of my favorite real world examples, which I'm currently working on, which is a proprietary um product which Quantinex is trying to build. So for which comes from SAP production support. And traditionally, when a finance ticket comes in, let's say an invoice not posting or an IDOC failing, a human had to read through the logs, then categorize it and assign it to the right consultant. It was it was slow and it was repetitive. But we built an AI assistant that reads the ticket description. Not only reads the ticket description, it classifies the issue automatically and even suggests probable resolutions by referencing historical tickets, SAP notes, and transaction data. So the impact we saw was massive. I'm talking about more than 40% faster ticket resolution and fewer repetitive issues and happier consultants who could focus on solving new problems instead of revisiting old ones. And the best part is that there's no chaos. The process did not change, and it became intelligent. And that's what effective AI should do, and it should improve without interrupting. This is what I feel,
And
and
this
we
is
are on path to make that happen.
and this is a you bring up a good point because the the processes are there, but right now, for the most time, people are doing a lot of the work, especially when it comes to some of the exceptions, because there's certain amount of pass through that kind of happens from an automation standpoint within the platform. But there are always going to be exceptions that are going to pop up that don't follow the traditional rules based kind of automation components. So when bringing this in, this has to be a boon for the folks who are in those chairs who are doing these exceptions on a daily basis to be able to say, well, this makes my life a little easier. How do you transition folks who are not necessarily AI savvy to bring them into this new world? Because, like I said, when I think of AI and the creativity that kind of brings along with it, I don't see finance being necessarily creative, especially when we're talking about operational activities. So, how do you bring folks who may not necessarily have that penchant to be able to jump on the next bandwagon technology wise because they've been doing the same kind of activities operationally for years?
Right. And this is a topic which kind of intrigued me and which made me thinking for the last I would say almost couple of years. And that's what led me to, take this next step of, thinking and writing this book. So to answer your question, right, uh, we finance people by nature, we are wired for control and, and rightfully so. And, we deal with money, compliance and accountability. So when we talk about AI, the conversation must start with trust and and I think trust doesn't come from fancy algorithms. It comes from transparency, right? And especially with respect to AI, we are um, at a stage where we are still figuring out things where not everybody is literate with in terms of AI and its components and its style of functioning and all that. So I think it's pretty natural, and that's the gap which which I'm trying to fill right now. Not just me, but a lot of folks out there. So I think with that, I think that AI must be explainable, and it meaning every recommendation, every anomaly flagged should come with a rationale that the auditor can understand. And at my company, Continex, we are building frameworks that maintain full audit logs of every AI action. Let's say when a CFO or an auditor can trace an AI decision back to its logic, then the fear turns into confidence. So I often say that AI does not remove control, it redefines it. Instead of reactive control at a month end, we get continuous control in real time. And that's what makes both AI, uh, um, uh, it makes AI both transformative and trustworthy.
That makes sense. So, we talk about month-end close, and for the folks who've been through it and continue to go through it on a monthly basis, then there's the quarterly and then the year-end. There's a lot of work that goes into closing the books for each one of these periods. So how do you see AI helping to support this? You kind of mentioned this idea of a real-time, continuous kind of activity. How would you see that reimagined as we go forward?
Well, you see, I think um, I'm a strong believer in the human in the loop approach. And that's also a part of many governances which we are seeing, which is coming out as part of statutory regulations from different countries. Um, I briefly got a chance to look at the AI playbook which the United States government came out with, and I think something came out from the EU as well. So the human in loop approach is pretty significant, and I think in finance, you simply cannot outsource judgment or ethics to machine, and humans must always remain in the final checkpoint, especially in areas like provisioning, accruals, or compliance interpretations. However, there are plenty of areas where AI can safely take the lead, like repetitive reconciliations, data validations, or your document matching. I think we should let AI handle what's repeatable, so humans can focus on what's meaningful, and that's happening up to a lot of extent. And then I like to describe it as partnership. AI provides speed and pattern recognition, whereas humans provide context and conscience. When both of us work together, the outcome is not just automation; it's amplification of human capability. Is what I strongly believe.
So when you've mentored these finance professionals and they're moving forward in these AI powered roles, what skills or mindset changes have to happen to allow them to adopt to this new era?
I think the single most skill, or rather a trait for this era, is I think learnability. Um, and uh, I think unlearning a few things and starting to adopt learnability is what I feel is the first step, even before we start learning about AI and its nitty-gritties. So the tools we use today might not exist 5 years ago from now, but
Hmm.
I think a curious mind will always stay relevant, is what I feel. So when lately I've been getting a chance to mentor a lot of students and recent grads. That's what I've been telling people, that I've seen people, especially some people in my family, who started their SAP careers back in late 90s and early 2000s. Back then, when they just started, just learning SAP Finance, General Ledger, AP, AR was sufficient. And then they've made, six figures and traveled the world. But I don't think that's possible right now. So I think finance professionals must now think like data translators. They don't need to code like developers, but they should understand the data structures. They should understand the process logic and how to communicate between IT and business. And I think equally, they must cultivate what I call business empathy, understanding why numbers matter to leadership decisions. And also in my mentorship programs, I emphasize three core pillars. Number one is process mastery, uh, data fluency, and AI awareness. Combine these with curiosity, and you become unstoppable. Is what I believe. And the future finance consultant and is not the ones who knows the most. And I think it's the one who uh, connects most dots between the business, the systems, and the overall intelligence.
That approach. And that's honestly, that's the idea that we're kind of going beyond the traditional one type of role for a specific person. And as you mentioned, being flexible and being able to be in that continuous learning phase, I think will help us all to understand how we can move forward as AI continues to transform the way we do business. So we look at finance, and there are plenty of legacy finance processes out there. Is there one legacy finance process that you believe is going to be completely reimagined by AI? And then is there one that will likely be completely untouched by AI?
Okay. I think if there's one process AI will completely transform, I strongly believe um, it's going to be financial close, which we briefly talked about.
Hmm.
Traditionally, closing books meant waiting for reconciliations to happen, approvals to happen, and then eliminations. I think AI can turn that into near real time activity by continuously matching, continuously validating, and flagging anomalies as the transactions happen. That's one thing which I see AI will completely transform. That will change. But one thing that will never change is human accountability. And at the end of that chain, the CFO's signature or the judgment to disclose and the ethical responsibility to report truthfully, that's not going to change. And I think AI will automate the doing, but um, humans will on the deciding part of things. And the line of accountability will never go away, is what I feel. And it will just be supported by much more smarter systems as we evolve.
Yeah, I think people are always going to be responsible for their operations, even no matter what tools are they're using, right? So, all right,
Absolutely.
last question is, if
Hmm.
you're talking with a CFO and you had to design a new roadmap for that CFO who wants to modernize without breaking everything, what would your first few steps be to talking with him?
That's a great question again. I mean, if I had to design a roadmap for a CFO, um, three steps you're saying. So I would start with first off, I would start off with saying that strengthen your data foundation, because AI is only as powerful as the data it consumes. Your data should be clean. You should have structured master data in the new your structured master data is the new currency of transformation, is what I believe. And step two is I would tell him or her to identify a high visibility, and low risk use case, something like cash application or forecast assistance. And these areas show quick wins. They build credibility and create positive internal stories. And finally, as step three, I would build a cross functional enablement hub, not just a center of excellence, which most companies are building these days, but a center of enablement where uh, finance, IT, and data teams can collaborate continuously. And finally, I think I would tell them that modernization does not mean replacing that work. It means making what works work. One For your audience, I'll let me say that one more time. Modernization does not mean replacing what works, because most people are afraid that AI will take over their job. What I mean by that is, it should mean making that works work. It should be faster, it should be better, and it should be smarter. And when CFOs take that approach, AI becomes less of a gamble and more of a growth strategy.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Well, Mohammed, thank you for providing some of these insights from your book and from just your experience. I really appreciate you being here and being able to talk through this.
Thank you so much for having me. But just to close, if there's one thing I would, if there's one thing I would like every listener to take away from this conversation, it's going to be this: uh, AI is not coming for your job; it's coming for your potential. And every wave of technology challenges us, and it builds on it, but it also expands what we can become. So instead of asking, "Will AI replace me?" ask what I can create, what I can learn or lead the AI can't. That mindset and your curiosity over fear is what will define the next generation of leaders.
Great parting words. Thanks again, Mohammed. I appreciate
Yeah.
you being here.
Thank you so much for having me.